Okay, so back to the eviction process. Let's say you've been to court, you got your judgment. What happens next? So every time you get a judgment, there is a 10-day appeal process. If the tenant didn't show up, it's pretty easy to appeal. If you had a JBA, also it's pretty easy to appeal. If you actually went in front of a judge, you can appeal, but it's a little more difficult to appeal. I'm not an attorney. I know enough about the law to be dangerous, but not enough to give actual legal advice. So don't take any legal advice from me. But I think at that point, they would have to appeal in the Court of Common Pleas, which just more paperwork. I think they might even have to post rent. It's a little bit different. But let's say you got your judgment. If the tenant did appeal for any reason, they didn't show up that day, then same thing, the process starts over. If you got a JBA, a judgment by agreement, and the tenant breached, the tenant can appeal the breach and again go in front of the judge, and at that point, that doesn't exactly start over, but you're back in court. You can negotiate a new JBA, a judgment by agreement, or you can reinstate the JBA, or you can go in front of a judge and see what happens. But let's say you got your final decision. At that point, after the appeal periods are up, you can file for your writ of possession. This is filed with the sheriff's office. The city of Philadelphia used to use the landlord-tenant officer, but that got phased out a few years ago. So now everything is with the sheriff's office. Now, what happens next? So you wait for the sheriff to schedule a lockout date. Now, how long does that take? It really depends. It changes depending on how busy the sheriff is, how staffed the sheriff is. Right now, as I create this video in March of 2026, the sheriff is running about 5 months behind. You heard me. So therefore, if you get your judgment on, let's say, January 1st, you'd be lucky to get a lockout in May. It's crazy, is what it is. Okay, let's say you get your lockout. What happens next? So you have to go there that day. You have to make sure, they'll give you a time. You have to make sure you're on site. A locksmith is on site. You're prepared to change the locks. At that point, you change the locks. The tenant has 30 days to claim their stuff. So you can't throw everything out. You could move it to storage, but they have 30 days before you can really take possession of the house. Okay, now after this, is it over? No, it's not over, because the tenant can always file a motion to get reinstated, which does happen depending on the reason. They may say that they were unlawfully evicted. They may say whatever. They can say anything they wanted, and you're back in front of a judge. So depending on the reason, I've seen judges reinstate. I've seen judges not reinstate. It really depends on why they are filing. Now, what happens if they break back in after the lockout? Well, if they break back in, they're trespassing, and you can call the police. What happens if they don't break back in, but somebody else does? Somebody else breaks in and says, I am the tenant now. I know you evicted John Jones. My name's Sam Smith. I'm the tenant now. Well, if that happens and they have a lease, it really depends on how the cop feels that morning. If the cop feels like getting his hands dirty, he's in a good mood, he feels bad for you, he could get them to leave if he doesn't believe that lease is valid, or doesn't believe there's enough, or thinks that they didn't get into the property unjustly. But what's happening a lot today is the police are doing exactly nothing, and you are back to square one. Have fun. It's rough out there.